What if I told you that scientists just turned a 90-year-old mouse's brain back into a young one, not slowed down aging, not prevented decline, but actually reversed Alzheimer's disease, and they did it in just 1 hour? This isn't science fiction, this happened last week, and it could change everything we know about dementia. Welcome back to Mind and Marvel, where we dive into the science that's reshaping our future. I'm thrilled you're here, because today we're covering what might be one of the most important medical breakthroughs of the decade: Alzheimer's disease. Just hearing those words sends chills down people's spines. It's the disease that steals memories, erases personalities, and leaves families watching helplessly as their loved ones fade away. Right now, over 6.7 million Americans are living with this cruel condition, and worldwide, that number exceeds 55 million people. For decades, we've thrown everything at Alzheimer's. Billions of dollars in research, countless clinical trials, armies of scientists. And yet, we've had virtually nothing to show for it. Every treatment has either failed or only slightly slowed the inevitable decline. We couldn't stop it, we certainly couldn't reverse it. Until now. Researchers from the Institute for Bioengineering of Catalonia and West China Hospital just published results that sound too good to be true. They injected specially designed nanoparticles, particles so small you'd need 100,000 of them lined up to match the width of a single human hair, into mice with Alzheimer's-like symptoms. Within 1 hour, toxic proteins in the brain dropped by 50 to 60%. Over several months, these elderly mice, who couldn't remember how to navigate mazes, who showed all the signs of severe cognitive decline, transformed. They started acting like young, healthy mice again. Sharp, alert, remembering. This isn't about managing symptoms. This is about flipping a switch and turning the disease off. So let's break down exactly what these scientists did, how it works, and what this means for the millions of families desperately waiting for hope. Before we get to the breakthrough, we need to understand something crucial. For years we've been fighting Alzheimer's the wrong way. And that's not because scientists were incompetent, it's because we fundamentally misunderstood what the disease actually is. When most people think of Alzheimer's, they picture toxic proteins called amyloid-beta building up in the brain like plaque on teeth. Clumps of this stuff form what we call plaques, and they're found all throughout the brains of Alzheimer's patients. For decades, the strategy was simple: find a way to destroy these plaques, and you'd cure the disease. Drug companies spent billions developing medications to break down amyloid-beta. Some of these drugs successfully reduced the plaques. Doctors would do brain scans and see fewer dark spots. Success, right? Wrong. The patients didn't get better. Their memories didn't come back. The cognitive decline continued almost as if nothing had happened. It was like successfully removing graffiti from a building while the building itself continued to collapse. So, what were we missing? Here's where this new research changes everything. The real problem isn't just the toxic proteins themselves, it's that the brain's garbage disposal system has completely broken down. Let me explain with an analogy. Imagine your city produces garbage every single day. That's normal, right? Your brain produces waste proteins every day too, including some amyloid-beta. In a healthy system, garbage trucks come regularly, pick up the trash, and haul it away to be processed. No problem, but what happens in Alzheimer's? The garbage trucks stop running. The waste management system fails. Now garbage piles up on every corner, overflowing from bins, blocking streets. You could bring in crews to manually pick up some of the garbage. That's what those earlier drugs tried to do. But without fixing the actual garbage truck system, new trash just keeps piling up. You're bailing water from a sinking ship. The brain's garbage trucks are actually part of something called the blood-brain barrier. This is a specialized layer of cells that lines all the blood vessels in your brain. It's incredibly selective. It lets oxygen and nutrients through but keeps toxins and pathogens out. And crucially, it's supposed to actively transport waste products, including amyloid-beta, out of the brain and into the bloodstream where your body can eliminate it. In Alzheimer's patients, this transport system malfunctions. A specific protein called LRP1, think of it as the loading dock supervisor, stops doing its job. Without functioning LRP1, the waste just accumulates. Neurons swimming in this toxic environment start to malfunction and die. Memories fade. Thinking becomes foggy. Personality changes. So the genius of this new approach isn't trying to manually clean up the mess. It's about fixing the garbage trucks themselves. Get the transport system working again, and the brain can clear its own waste, just like it's supposed to. So now we understand the problem. The question is, how do you restart a biological system that's been broken for years? How do you wake up those sleeping LRP1 proteins and get them working again? This is where the nanoparticles come in, and trust me, these are unlike anything you've heard about before. First, let's talk about what they're not. These aren't little delivery trucks carrying medicine. Most nanoparticle therapies work like that. They're essentially microscopic FedEx packages, carrying traditional drugs to specific locations in the body. But these are the medicine. The researchers call them supramolecular drugs, and they're a completely new category of treatment. Think of them as molecular keys that fit into specific locks. Here's how they work. The scientists engineered these nanoparticles to be exactly the right size and shape to mimic the natural molecules that LRP1 proteins are supposed to recognize. When these nanoparticles encounter amyloid-beta floating around in the brain, they bind to it, stick to it like Velcro. Now you've got a nanoparticle amyloid-beta complex, and this complex looks exactly like what the LRP1 protein is designed to transport. It's like showing up at the loading dock with the right credentials and the right uniform. The LRP1 protein says, "Oh, this is what I'm supposed to move," and springs back into action. But here's the really clever part. By getting LRP1 to start working again, even just a little bit, you trigger a feedback loop. Remember, biological systems love feedback loops. Once LRP1 starts clearing some amyloid beta, the environment around the blood-brain barrier cells starts to improve. As conditions improve, those cells can produce more functional LRP1. More LRP1 means more clearing capacity. More clearing means even better conditions. It's a positive spiral. The researchers injected these nanoparticles into 12-month-old mice. That's equivalent to about a 60-year-old human showing significant Alzheimer's symptoms. They gave just 3 doses, not a daily pill for life. 3 doses, period. 1 hour after injection, brain scans showed a 50 to 60% reduction in amyloid beta. 1 hour. Researchers could literally watch the brain clearing itself in real time, but the real test was long-term. Would the effects last? Would the mice actually recover cognitively? The researchers monitored these mice for months, putting them through the rodent equivalent of memory tests, mazes, object recognition tasks, spatial learning challenges. Month after month, the treated mice got better. By 18 months of age, equivalent to a 90-year-old human, these mice were performing like young, healthy adults. Let me repeat that because it's absolutely staggering. A 90-year-old mouse with severe Alzheimer's-like disease was acting like it was young again. Not a little better, not slower decline. Young, vibrant, sharp. The scientists did deep tissue analysis and found that the blood-brain barrier had been comprehensively restored. The transport system was running smoothly again. The brain's natural cleaning mechanisms were back online, and without constant toxic buildup, the neurons could recover and function properly. It's like the researchers didn't just fix one broken garbage truck, they repaired the entire waste management infrastructure of the city. Now, if you've been following Alzheimer's research over the years, you might be thinking, wait, I've heard promising news before. Treatments that work in mice but fail in humans. Why should this be any different? That's a completely fair question, and honestly, it's the question everyone in the scientific community is asking right now. But there are several reasons why this particular breakthrough has researchers genuinely excited in a way they haven't been in years. First, unlike previous approaches, this doesn't target the neurons directly. Almost every failed Alzheimer's drug tried to either protect neurons from damage or remove the toxic plaques around them. But here's the problem. By the time Alzheimer's is diagnosed, significant brain damage has already occurred. It's like trying to save a house that's already halfway burned down. This nanoparticle approach is fundamentally different. It targets the vascular system, the blood vessels, and the blood-brain barrier. And here's what's remarkable. That system is much more resilient and capable of repair than neurons themselves. Blood vessel cells can regenerate. The transport machinery can be restored. It's not about trying to resurrect dead neurons, it's about fixing the infrastructure that keeps living neurons healthy. Second, the therapy doesn't require continuous treatment. Those 3 doses created a lasting effect that continued for months. Why? Because they reset the system. They didn't just temporarily boost something, they actually repaired the underlying mechanism. It's the difference between giving someone crutches and healing their broken leg. Third, the approach is surprisingly safe. The nanoparticles are made from materials the body already recognizes and can process. They don't accumulate in tissues. they don't trigger massive immune responses. The mice showed no significant side effects, no weight loss, no behavioral changes beyond the intended cognitive improvements, no organ damage. Obviously, human safety trials will need to confirm this, but the preliminary signs are extremely promising. Fourth, and this is the part that has me most excited, this approach could potentially enhance the effectiveness of other Alzheimer's treatments. Think about it. If you can restore the blood-brain barrier function, you're not just clearing amyloid-beta, you're also improving the brain's overall environment, potentially allowing other drugs to work better, letting the immune system function more effectively, maybe even enabling the brain to repair other types of damage. Remember those immunotherapy drugs for cancer we talked about in previous videos? They work by unleashing the immune system. Well, guess what? The same researchers found that a healthy functioning blood-brain barrier is crucial for maintaining the type of immune cells that could potentially fight Alzheimer's. By fixing the barrier, you might be setting the stage for immune-based therapies to actually work in the brain. But, and this is important, we're still in early days. This worked spectacularly in mice. Mice are not humans. The mouse version of Alzheimer's is artificially created and doesn't perfectly mimic the human disease, which develops naturally over decades. Human brains are vastly more complex. What works in a mouse brain might not translate the same way to a human brain. The next steps are clear but will take time. First, validate these results in other animal models, maybe primates. Second, extensive safety testing. Third, early-stage human trials to confirm safety in people. Fourth, efficacy trials to see if it actually helps Alzheimer's patients. We're talking years, possibly 5 to 10 years, before this could potentially be available as a treatment. But here's why there's genuine hope. The principle is sound. The mechanism makes biological sense, and the results aren't marginal. They're dramatic. When something works this well in preclinical models, when it aligns so perfectly with what we understand about the disease mechanism, researchers pay attention. Let's zoom out for a moment and talk about what this means beyond just Alzheimer's disease, because the implications here are enormous. This research represents a fundamental shift in how we think about treating brain diseases. For the longest time, the brain was considered this locked fortress. The blood-brain barrier, which we've been talking about as part of the problem in Alzheimer's, is actually incredibly good at its primary job, protecting the brain. It keeps out infections, toxins, and even most medications. This has been the nightmare of neuroscience research. You can develop the most brilliant drug in the world, but if it can't cross the blood-brain barrier, it's useless for treating brain diseases. Researchers have spent decades trying to sneak drugs across this barrier, creating molecular Trojan horses, designing special carriers, even trying to temporarily open gaps in the barrier. But this nanoparticle approach is different. Instead of fighting against the blood-brain barrier, it works with it. Instead of trying to bypass security, it speaks the security system's language. That's a completely different paradigm. And here's what's exciting. If you can design nanoparticles that work with the blood-brain barrier to clear amyloid-beta, what else could you clear? What else could you fix? There's Parkinson's disease, where a different protein called alpha-synuclein accumulates in the brain. Could a similar nanoparticle approach help clear that? What about Huntington's disease, frontotemporal dementia, ALS? All of these involve some form of toxic protein buildup or vascular dysfunction in the brain. Even beyond neurodegeneration, think about brain tumors. One reason brain tumors are so hard to treat is getting chemotherapy drugs across the blood-brain barrier. If you could design nanoparticles that specifically target tumor cells and can cross the barrier naturally, game changer. Or consider stroke recovery. After a stroke, the blood-brain barrier becomes leaky and dysfunctional, contributing to ongoing damage. What if you could repair it quickly, limiting the damage? The technique these researchers developed, creating nanoparticles that mimic natural molecules and interact with specific proteins, is essentially a new toolkit. And once you have a toolkit, you can start building solutions to all sorts of problems. There's another angle too. This research emerged from a collaboration between institutions in Spain and China. Modern science is increasingly global, with researchers sharing data, techniques, and insights across borders. This particular breakthrough wouldn't have happened without that international collaboration. It's a reminder that the biggest challenges facing humanity require our best minds working together, regardless of geography or politics. For the families currently living with Alzheimer's, I want to be both honest and hopeful. This is not a cure available today. If you or a loved one is struggling with dementia, this won't help immediately. Current treatments, lifestyle interventions, and support systems remain important, but for the first time in decades, we have a fundamentally new approach that actually addresses the root cause of the disease. We have evidence of genuine reversal, not just slowing decline. We have a path forward that makes biological sense and shows dramatic results. The researchers themselves, while excited, are measured in their optimism. They're already planning the next phases of research. They're reaching out to pharmaceutical partners. They're carefully designing the human trials that will tell us whether this miracle in mice can become medicine for people. Science doesn't move as fast as we'd like, but it does move, and right now, it's moving in a direction that offers real hope for one of medicine's most devastating diseases. So here's what we've learned today. For decades, we've been fighting Alzheimer's by trying to clean up toxic proteins manually, when the real problem was a broken waste disposal system in the brain. These new supramolecular nanoparticles work like molecular keys, restarting the blood-brain barrier's natural cleaning mechanism. In mice, the results were nothing short of miraculous. Brains clearing themselves in an hour, cognitive function restored over months, elderly mice acting young again. This isn't just another failed attempt at treating Alzheimer's. This is a fundamentally new approach that targets the infrastructure, not the symptoms. It's showing us that brain diseases we thought were irreversible might actually be fixable if we address the right mechanisms. We're not there yet for humans. Years of careful research lie ahead. But for the first time in my years covering medical science, I can say this with genuine confidence. We're on the right track. We found a door that was hidden and we're figuring out how to open it. For the 6.7 million Americans and 55 million people worldwide living with Alzheimer's, and for their families who live with them through every heartbreaking moment, this research represents something powerful. It represents hope. Real, scientifically grounded, biologically sound hope. The future is being written right now in laboratories around the world by dedicated researchers who refuse to give up on solving one of medicine's greatest challenges. And based on what we've seen in these mice, that future looks brighter than it has in a very long time. Science works. Persistence pays off. And sometimes, just sometimes, we get to witness genuine breakthroughs that change everything. If this breakthrough excited you as much as it excited me, show some love by hitting that like button. And I have a question for you. If you could design a nanoparticle to fix any disease, which one would you choose and why? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one, and love hearing your thoughts. Now, if you're fascinated by how technology is revolutionizing medicine, you need to check out our video on CRISPR gene editing and how it's curing previously incurable genetic diseases. That link is right up here. Trust me, it's mind-blowing. Don't forget to subscribe to Mind and Marvel and hit that notification bell. We're covering the cutting edge of science every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Seriously, the stuff we're working on for next week will blow your mind. Before you go, I want to say thank you. Thank you for caring about science, for being curious, for wanting to understand how the world works. People like you, people who take the time to learn about these breakthroughs, you're the reason science matters. You're the reason researchers keep pushing forward. Stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep marveling at the incredible things human beings can accomplish when we put our minds to it. This is Mind and Marvel, and I'll see you in the next one.